Now, the latest peace agreement in the Democratic Republic of Congo offers a fresh and much-needed glimmer of hope, but the country still has many challenges. Our Paul Ndiho talked to the U.S. Representative Karen Bass about her recent visit to the DRC and her hopes for Congolese citizens suffering from 2 decades of violence.
We did interact with a number of the organizations, the non-governmental organizations that work with women, that work on issues of sexual violence. But we happened to be in the DRC the day before the agreement was signed in Ethiopia. And so I'm hopeful, and you were probably aware about the parts of that agreement. On the Congo side, number one, that they will deal with security sector reform. For the neighboring countries, that they will stay out of the Congo, and then from the UN as well as other African countries, that they will act as a monitoring force. So you know that the Congo has had the largest number of peacekeepers in the world, but now that force is going to change over to part peacekeeping, but also part fighting. Part military troops. And so I'm hopeful that they will be able to suppress the rebels, the M23, and some of the other groups. When you have a population that does not see a future, that is hopeless, that does not see any way for legitimate employment, then they turn to crime. And so when I look at M23 or when I look at some of the rebel forces in northern Mali, I think that until you address those social and economic conditions, you're going to constantly face this type of instability. And so looking at the Congo, you're talking about one of the richest countries on the earth in terms of its resources. And what a tragedy it is that after so many years, they've not been able to take those resources and utilize them to the benefit of the population. So it's my hope for both the Congo and Mali that they will be able to take the resources that are already there and use them for the benefit of the masses of the people and not just for a small sector.
The agreement that was signed over the weekend was very significant. It's important, but at the same time, it raises a lot of challenges. Making sure that agreement holds is another question altogether. So how would you, as a congresswoman, maybe help to make sure that what was signed can at least hold for a while?
Well, what I need to do as a member of Congress is to take care of the business right here in this country. And so, for example, we're facing this manufactured crisis called a sequester, where we have one of the political parties here that want to see across-the-board cuts. And those cuts would impact the United Nations. Those cuts would impact foreign aid. So it's my job here to educate the U.S. population, and it's also my job to fight things such as the sequester, to make sure that there's not cuts that are given to the United Nations and to foreign aid, because that foreign aid and that support for the United Nations, it's what's going to help deliver and maintain the peace in the Congo.
How about the role of Rwanda, the role of Uganda? A lot of people seem to suggest that those countries are actually partly to blame for the crisis in the Congo.
Part of the agreement says that the neighboring countries will stay out of it. And certainly there's an awful lot of concern raised about Rwanda, more so than Uganda these days. But I think with the agreement and all of those countries participating in signing the agreement, backed up by the United Nations, it's my hope that if nations were interfering in the Congo, that they would stop that interference, because now the entire world is watching.
Tell me a little bit about the resolution that you are working on to do with Congo.
My responsibility here is to get members of Congress to sign on to a resolution that we hope to put on the President's desk that is essentially saying our support for the people of the Congo, but it's also calling on leadership from our country to have a special envoy. So we were calling for 2 things in the resolution. One was for a special envoy to be appointed from the United Nations. That was actually taken care of when the agreement was signed. But we would also like to have a high-level envoy from the United States that would participate in maintaining the peace.
Well, that was VOA's Paul Ndiho with U.S. Representative Karen Bass, who serves on a key committee on Africa.